Hello, I'm Bradley Alisea, and today I'm going to tell you about something we call the guidance tree. This is part of our open source curriculum. This is something that I use to direct people in different directions in the community, depending on their interests. This is something we originally developed in the Open Learn Foundation around 2015, and it was based on an idea that we were trying to flesh out, and we didn't quite get there, so we didn't implement a tree for the Open Learn Foundation, but I've implemented a tree for the Rockware community here, and I'm going to go through that tree and talk about, why we would use it and where it leads and all that. And then, in the future, we'd like to open source this guidance tree. So we'd like to have other open source communities or other groups be able to use a guidance tree in this way. So it needs a little bit more work in terms of the documentation in some of these cases. But for right now, I'm just going to walk through what we have here. So the idea of a guidance tree is simple. It's if I'm coming into the community as a new person, I want to know where I fit in. And I might fit in a number of different places, but I want to, kind of go through the steps of not onboarding, but it's like going through the practical steps of where you might contribute. So for example, if I have a very strong coding background, then of course I'm interested in a coding contribution, but I might be interested in other things as well. Similarly, if you don't have a very strong coding background, you might not want to contribute through coding just yet. You might want to do other things. And those other things, there are a lot of other functions in open source communities, everything from writing docs to coming up with ideas to moderating discussions. And we have some of those sessions in our curriculum as well. And but you want to be able to find a role for yourself. That's the idea. So here we have our guidance tree for the Rockware community. And the way this is set up is that you ask certain questions of the person going through the tree, and they give an answer in the form of a button press. So this is a little limiting in terms of anyone having an open question and then getting a open-ended or a closed-ended answer from an open-ended question. But what we do is we just make some simple questions that, if you're coming into the community for the first time, what are my roles? And we try to divide it up so that we know that there are two basic categories of contribution: the coding and what we call the building, which is things that may involve code, but it's not in the main code base. So the coding contributions are largely, working on the main code base, working on things associated with that. The building contributions are different. Those are maybe documentation, or maybe they're, foundational, where you're, doing quality control, or you're coming up with documentation for, like different terminology. You're, trying to moderate discussions between other contributors. So it requires you sometimes to have a pretty strong technical background, but it's just not working with the code is what a lot of people assume happens, and the only thing that happens in an open source community, but that's not true. So on this first page, you notice that this is connected to a larger website. So you want to make it easy to find for contributors. And then you want to have your logo and everything on there. And then you want to ask a simple question. Would you like to make a coding programming contribution, or a building, documentation, maintenance, design, or discussion contribution? And then you give them two unambiguous responses. So coding or building. You define them in the term here in the question, and then you click on one or the other. So now let's say I want to click on coding. All right, definitely want to make a coding contribution, but I don't know how, actually. So then it comes to the next question. Are you interested in platform adoption or making an open source coding contribution? So this is where, if you have like an organization that wants to adopt the platform, that's a different set of things you need to know than if you just want to make an open source coding contribution. If you just want to write some lines of code or be involved in some issues or whatever. So let's say I want platform adoption. If I click on that, I go to the partners page on the main organizational website. And then you go through this process of applying or contacting people. And then, we're outside the purview of the guidance tree. We're now in like an action item, which is where I hit the bottom of the tree and I get put in a place where I can make an action happen. So, okay, let's say we don't want to do platform adoption. Let's say instead we want to do an open source coding contribution. So I have asked another question. Have you engaged with our Good First issues? If so, then are you familiar with GitHub and how to make a pull request? So I'm asking you all these vocational questions about your skill level. And so I'm probing your skill level here. So also yes. Have you consulted our wikis, docs, tutorials, or Rockwire API resources? So again, have you done all of these things that will tell you more, give you more specificity about making a coding contribution? I've also done that. And so now it puts me in the GitHub organization. So now, I'm not just dumping you anywhere, I'm dumping you somewhere where you can start working. But you have all those prerequisites in place. This is very much like a choose your own adventure model, where you have, you can make a choice, you can backtrack, you can go down another path. Usually people won't do that, but sometimes they will because they don't find what they want. I mean, this is not foolproof. You're going to have to do some work defining what your questions are, what your decision points are in that process. So here we have 3 levels of probing to say, if you just want to make, open source coding contribution, there are 3 things you need to know. And if you don't know any of these 3 things, then you need to do something else. So if you haven't engaged with our Good First issues, which is a very basic level, you have GitHub issues that are very simple, they're very broad, and they kind of give you ideas of how you might do some sort of coding contribution. If you've engaged with those and you still want to do it, then you have other more technical questions and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to give you this guidance. I'm trying to direct you to certain resources and make you consider all the possibilities. So let's say you have not engaged with our Good First issues. So why don't you explore those? So now this dumps you out into our onboarding page. And so we have, if you go down here, we have Good First issues right here. And I dumped you out on the top because I want you to read through this before you actually read the Good First issues, because you likely haven't done this if you've not seen the Good First issues. So, and then the Good First issues will tell you something about the issue number, different things that are involved. And then if you click on here, you go to the issue in GitHub and it tells you more about it. Okay, so let's say I did engage with my Good First issues. Now, are you familiar with GitHub and how to make a pull request? Okay, maybe I'm not. Maybe I've seen the Good First issues, but I'm befuddled by GitHub and I don't really understand it. So let's go to know. So now I say, okay, please consult our video tutorials and curated resources to get started. So we actually have resources to learn how to use GitHub. There are also very good resources at github.com, the GitHub organization, the GitHub Corporation. They have good tutorials, very good tutorials, in fact, for using this for beginners and for intermediate users. So we have our video tutorials, and this is our list of video tutorials. Again, this is this page. This is this onboarding page, but it's at a certain place. And then where are the curated resources, which are actually on our GitHub, in our GitHub repository here. And we have this page of resources. So these are tutorials for the open source environment. It tells you software carpentry's resources, the Turing way, some other things. These are just really basic open source resources. They're also programming tutorials, discussion threads. So there are all sorts of resources here. And these are all useful for understanding how to program, how to do open source, what to program, in what language, and so forth. So this is all very useful, curated resources. You may or may not find that useful. Let's say you found that useful and you're on your way, then you can go back up the guidance tree. So there is actually a fair amount of backtracking here. Once you visit a place, you may need to go back to another place. So if you're familiar with GitHub and how to make a pull request, now you can go to yes. And now you can go a different direction Have you consulted our wikis, docs, tutorials, and Rockware API resources? You say, no. So you go to developer resources. And this dumps you out on our developers page, where then you have the different resources listed here and in order of kind of, beginner to sort of advanced. But we have, a lot of different things here. You just go through and you look and you see if there's something that, that serves your needs. Let's say then you have consulted those. You can go back, you can say yes. And that actually is a dead link right now because, oh no, it isn't. It takes you to the Rockware organization. So it's not a dead link. But some of these things, you're going to be works in progress. Try not to, the tips of the trees are kind of important for getting people to where they want to be. And you have to consider where that needs to be, what resource that needs to be linked to. Sometimes it's going to be somewhat vague to people, but maybe not. Something that's vague can also be of general interest. So if you have something of general interest, that might be good. If it's very specific, it might not serve someone's needs so well. So just keep that in mind. Let's go back up to the top here. Let's go to building contributions. Now we've talked about coding, let's talk about building. So in building, we have all these different categories, but those categories themselves can be split into two parts: technical review and ideation. And so now we ask the question, what kind of building contribution would you like to make? A technical review contribution, documentation, quality assurance, or an ideation related discussion and design contribution. So, I say I'm really kind of interested in documentation, but I'm also interested in discussion. So let's check out documentation first, and let's try both of them and see where they are. So we'll go to technical review. Let me say, would you like to be involved in a documentation interest group or as a maintainer? So documentation maker, then, if you want to do that, would you like to be involved in creating demos / tutorials or contributing to and editing documents? So we have a wiki where we have a process for suggesting entries. It's not as advanced and as seamless as Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is a very involved, the whole community revolves around, documentation and wiki contributions. But ours is more like, you find something that you want to put up, it goes through a code owner on GitHub, they screen it, and then they either put it on the wiki or send it back to you for suggestions. It's very much a pull request driven sort of wiki contribution system. But, that's for our needs because we have a very relatively small wiki that does the trick. So if you go to the wiki documentation, you're dumped out here. This is our backend of our wiki where you have instructions on how to create, how to contribute to this list of pages. So you go through the list of pages. If there's something that you see that's pretty similar to what you want, you click on it, you read it, you see if it suits your needs. If it doesn't, you can issue a pull request to make improvements. If it doesn't, you can create a new stub. You just need to give it a title and all that. So this kind of dumps you out right where you need to be. Demos and tutorials are another option. So this is a demo or a tutorial where we have, this is on GitHub, what they call an issue template. So you're going to be, actually, these are the issue templates for both the wiki content and for the demos and tutorials. I just kind of dump you out in a place where the demos and tutorials issue template is, but also the wiki content issue, you can get there through the other link as well. So you fill out that issue template and you propose a demo or tutorial. Pretty simple. So then, let's say, okay, yeah, it's interesting, but what's a maintainer? So let's go down to maintainer, and there are two types of maintainers in our community: issue triage, which is where you're triaging GitHub issues, things that the code owner can't get to. This involves, going to the code owner, and so there are instructions here on this GitHub page. It just tells you what you need to know about this, the sort of instructions, the conventions for this. or beta testing in QA or quality assurance. And so we don't really have anything for that right now because there are specific instructions we would need for that. So why don't we go back up to the, I said that, I might want to do ideation. I might want to do discussion or be a discussion person. I don't know what that means yet. I have to go find out. But it's under ideation. We know that from these instructions. We go to ideation. Would you like to be involved in a design-oriented contribution or discussion-oriented contribution? So a design-oriented contribution, and of course, is like ideation, a data analyst / facilitator. This is something that we have, but this is where your discussions come in. So we have this discussion tab. I see discussion. Let's go to discussion. And now there are two categories here. You can either be a promoter or a topic leader. And so if I'm a promoter, my job is sort of a technology evangelist or promoter. I'm promoting the technology. I'm doing things to get people into the community around the technology. And maybe you find speakers for a lecture series or a forum. There are different ways that you can do this. But basically that's the role. And then topic leader is different because a topic leader actually this is a promoter topic leader, but it's really a more topic leader. And the idea here is to create content, create discussions, be the leader of discussions on different topics. So, there are different things you can do there. You can have like a topic of the month. So, this month we might focus on building working with some type of tool, or we might build some type of thing, or we might explore some topic, how to bring it into the application that we're building. So all these things are, you have to think about your community and think about what's important to them, and then, propose these different topics and then start, maybe you do like a blog post on it to kick things off, to get people in the mind space of where this is, so you can start discussing. And so it's a kind of a hard job, but this is something that we've gone from like someone who just kind of wants to be involved in the community to, maybe I can do something that doesn't involve coding, to, I know all these things about the software, but I'm not really sure I want to work with the code base, to, there's this discussion role. And then, there's this topic leader role. So it'd be perfect for me. So you see, you can find very specific roles in the community this way. If you find something that, if there's something that's a problem in this, of course, you can contact us. So this is the thing about open sourcing this. It's really going to depend on the community, how these questions come up. And I'm not really sure how to handle that in terms of like if we need an ontology, or maybe if we need some sort of way to facilitate when people adopt this decision tree, this guidance tree, how they should phrase the questions. But suffice it to say, there's going to be some experimentation on your part to get the wording right and to figure out what these buttons should say, and then get people down in the right place, and then what the tips of those trees should be, what those links should be. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Thank you.